The storm-lashed night had descended upon the savanna, turning the world into a canvas of shadow and chaos. Rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the muddy earth, each drop washing away the day's warmth, leaving only the chilling reality of the hunt. Here, under the angry sky, the epic struggle between one lone buffalo and a pack of relentless hyenas raged on, a brutal testament to the laws of the wild. The buffalo, a magnificent warrior, now marred by deep wounds, stood his ground. His massive frame shuddered with exhaustion and pain, a leg buckling under his weight, but in his eyes a fire still blazed, a defiant inferno of pure, untamed will. He was a king in his own right, cornered but not conquered. Across the churning mud, the hyenas circled like phantoms in the downpour. Their low, guttural growls mingled with the distant rumble of thunder, creating a symphony of impending doom. They were patient, these masters of attrition, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The leader of the pack, a grizzled veteran with a fresh gash on its muzzle, let out a sharp, commanding bark. It was a signal. The pack's formation tightened, their movements fluid and synchronized, a single predatory organism closing in on its prize. They were a living, breathing net, ready to ensnare the wounded giant. The buffalo watched them, his breath coming in ragged bursts that fogged in the cold air. He snorted, a sound of pure contempt. You think this storm can wash away your cowardice? His defiant posture seemed to roar. You think the darkness hides your fear? Come on, then come closer and learn what it means to face a spirit that refuses to break. As if in answer, a brilliant fork of lightning split the sky, momentarily illuminating the scene in a stark, ghostly white. In that flash, a younger, bolder hyena saw its chance. It lunged forward, a blur of fur and teeth, aiming for the buffalo's already injured flank. But the buffalo was ready. With a speed that defied his condition, he swung his head low. His horns, thick and curved like sides, met the attacker with the force of a battering ram. The impact was sickening. The hyena was launched into the air, its triumphant yelp turning into a shrill cry of agony as it landed hard in the muck, broken and whimpering. The attack had failed. A wave of uncertainty rippled through the hyena pack. They faltered, their confidence circling, replaced by a hesitant shuffle. The sight of their comrade being so effortlessly dispatched had shaken their resolve. The buffalo capitalized on their hesitation. He lowered his head again, pawing at the sodden ground, his nostrils flaring wide as he drew in ragged breaths. He was daring them, challenging them to try again. 4 hours! This grim dance had continued. They had chased him across the plains, nipping at his heels, trying to wear him down. They had believed his end was near. But now, as they stared at the indomitable figure standing before them, doubt began to creep into their predators' hearts. He was bleeding! He was exhausted! He was alone, and yet he seemed utterly unstoppable! The hyenas regrouped, their eerie whoops and calls cutting through the storm's fury. The pack leader, realizing their current numbers were not enough, let out a long, piercing howler call for reinforcements. From the deep shadows of the acacia trees, new shapes emerged. First, a few, then a dozen, then more, their eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. The pack swelled in size until dozens of hyenas now stood arrayed against the lone buffalo. The buffalo's eyes, which had burned with defiance, now widened with a dawning horror. He understood. This was no longer a hunt. It was a siege. This was not a fight for a meal. It was an execution! A heavy sigh escaped his lungs, a cloud of steam in the frigid air. So, this is it. He seemed to accept, a grim finality settling over him. Not a warrior's death in single combat, but overwhelmed, surrounded by the pack. He gathered the last vestiges of his strength for one final, glorious stand. And then they were upon him. They swarmed from every direction, a tidal wave of teeth and claws. The night exploded into a maelstrom of violence. They bit at his legs, tore at his hide, leaped onto his back. The buffalo roared in fury and pain. He thrashed his massive head, kicking out with his powerful legs. He tossed one attacker high into the air, its body a limp projectile against the stormy sky. He gored another, its life ending on the tip of his horn. Blood and mud churned together under his hooves, painting a grim masterpiece of his final moments. But for every one he struck down, 2 more took its place. The sheer weight of their numbers was a crushing force. Slowly, inexorably, his legendary strength began to fade. The fire in his eyes flickered, dimmed by the encroaching shadows of exhaustion. Even the greatest legends of the plains must eventually bow to the unyielding laws of nature. The buffalo had fought with the heart of a lion and the strength of the earth itself, a true warrior of the savanna. But tonight, his war was ending. His legs finally gave way. He sank to his knees, then collapsed onto his side with a ground-shaking thud. The hyenas, sensing victory, surged forward for the final, brutal act. But then a sound ripped through the night, a sound more powerful than the thunder above, a deep, resonant bellow that shook the very ground. It was a call of kinship, a roar of defiance. Out of the darkness, a tide of black shapes charged through the rain. A herd, his herd, dozens of buffalo, a moving wall of muscle and horn, stormed onto the battlefield. The ground trembled beneath their stampede. The hyenas, moments from their triumph, scattered in sheer terror. Their victory feast was snatched away in an instant. The leader of the herd, an old bull with a face crisscrossed with the scars of 100 battles, locked eyes on the hyena leader and charged. The predator didn't hesitate. It turned and fled, the entire pack melting away into the safety of the trees. The fallen hero was no longer alone. He was surrounded by his family, his kin. They formed a protective circle around him, their massive bodies a shield against the world. One of the buffalo, perhaps his mate or his offspring, moved closer and gently nuzzled his face. The wounded warrior, who had stared death in the face without flinching, finally closed his eyes. But it was not in defeat. It was in peace, safe in the embrace of his herd. On the wild plains of Africa, survival is rarely a solo endeavor. A single warrior can fight a battle, but only unity can win the war. Alone, we are vulnerable, but together, we are invincible. The herd always remembers. The herd always returns. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If you were moved by this story of courage and community, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tailies from the heart of the wild.